everyone. My name is Lawrence. I am a member of the AGU H3S Professional Development Committee. The AGU H3S is the Student Hydrology Subcommittee, Student Subcommittee for Hydrology as part of the AGU. We're a group of interested early career researchers, students, and postdocs who are working on basically advancing community in the hydrologic sciences. We organize professional development seminars, events at AGU, and also do research highlights and promote AGI principles within the hydrologic sciences community. This webinar is organized under the auspices of the Professional Development Subcommittee of the AGU H3S. So I want to thank all the other members of the committee who have done an immense amount of work in putting together this panel. So sorry about that. So today we'll be having Dr. Scott Miller from the NASA Postdoctoral Program, Dr. Monika Kopacz from the NOAA Climate and Global Change Postdoctoral Fellowship, and Dr. Cara Campbell presenting the Mendenhall Research Fellowship Program at the United States Geological Survey. I'm going to give a very brief, almost restatement of what Julia said about the logistics for the second part of this, and then hand it over to Dr. Miller. So we'll be having a Q&A with the program directors. Please submit questions via the Zoom Q&A. They'll be seen by the panelists. All the program directors, they'll be able to respond. If you see a question that you want answered and you had the same question, you can upload it with a like. When we transition into the breakout rooms, we'll be trying to pick the highest liked questions. Questions and answers from the program officers and program directors will be collected and shared afterwards on the AGU H3S website, which is given here. And you can just Google AGU H3S, you'll find it. Please keep in mind for your questions if you do not want to ask specific questions about your research, which may reveal details about your proposed project and that you don't want to be shared. And hopping back to AGU H3S very quickly, if you're interested in becoming a part of H3S and contributing back to the hydrologic sciences community, no matter where you are in your career or where you are in the world, applications are going to be opening in the fall. Please subscribe to our newsletter. You can see our Twitter or our LinkedIn, or get in touch with one of the conveners from the H3S side after today. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Miller to begin.
All right, thanks very much. Thanks everyone for having me. While I get a screen share going. Okay, that should do it. Good day, whatever part of that day it is for any of you. My name's Scott Miller. I'm currently the director of the NASA Postdoctoral Program. I work with an organization called the Oak Ridge Associated Universities. We're a nonprofit university consortium that run a lot of STEM workforce development and education programs. So today, I have the privilege of being able to talk about the NASA Postdoctoral Program, and I'll try to step through this fairly quickly. Everything that will be discussed today, you should be able to find on our website, and hopefully I'll pull my screen over during the presentation and also show you some of that as well. So that's the link to our website, npp.orau.org, and I'm happy to answer any questions as we go through. So about the NASA Postdoctoral Program, or NASA in general, many of you may be familiar, but this is a map of all the different locations. There are 10 NASA centers and a number of additional facilities, all of which are eligible to house postdoctoral fellowships. Not all of them do. Some of them are very small, some of them are larger. Based on your discipline, you'll find sort of a center of mass for your particular research. The NASA Postdoctoral Program supports all areas of NASA's Mission Directorate. The largest user is NASA's Science Mission Directorate, which includes astrophysics, heliophysics, earth sciences, and planetary sciences. And I expect the earth sciences and possibly the planetary sciences will be of interest more to this audience. But I did want to present that is not just science. There are engineering fellowships as well. There are technology development fellowships. It's fairly broad, and it's heavily used. It's a very competitive program. We generally run just shy of about 200 NPP fellows at any one point in time. But just for representation, I wanted to put all of these sort of very broad disciplines here. Let's see. So about the program, This is an in-residence program. COVID has changed the flavor of that somewhat, but NASA is trying hard to get back to a more in-person participation in fellowship, because a large part of the fellowship is building community within the NASA research programs. So it is expected that fellows will locate to a NASA center, and as of now, will at least be able to spend some amount of time on center. Not all the centers are back open. Some of them still go back and forth on different what's happening in the local communities kind of thing. There's a couple of flavors of fellowship programs. There's the postdoctoral research program, which is for new postdocs have received their Ph.D. within the past 5 years. There are also senior fellowship programs for people who want to look at research opportunities that are more than 5 years beyond their Ph.D. And then there's an additional program within the MPP for people who want to learn more about possibly program management. Generally, it's required that you have served 1 year of you have 1 year of postdoctoral experience. There's a little bit of a discussion if that means 1 year of NPP experience, or if you need to have 1 year of postdoc experience from somewhere else, but those are generally on case-by-case basis. These are merit-based awards. It does consist of a research proposal, which is about 40% of the weighting there. Your academic and research record is reviewed and considered, and that does your career experience plays into that. Like a new postdoc and a senior fellow would probably not be measured by the same standard there, just based on what would be expected of someone at a particular point in your career. There are references as part of the application, and then 20% of it though is actually the potential NASA research advisor that you would be applying to. And we'll get into that a little bit more here. There are currently 3 application deadlines every March 1st, July 1st, and November 1st. The one's coming up right now. I think everyone would be challenged to write a 15-page research proposal in 12 days. But it is sort of like clockwork right now. It's always published, and those are due at 6 p.m. Eastern time on the deadlines. A little bit about the program. NASA has recently invested a lot into raising the sort of quality of care of the participants. So the stipend is a minimum of $70,000 a year now. It's recently gone up. This was announced a year ago. It was at $63,000 a year base, and those are augmented by locality as well. So higher cost of living areas get proportionally higher stipends. All fellows do get an annual travel and professional development budget of $10,000. That's primarily at the fellow's discretion, but also it's in coordination with the research advisor and the center representatives. There is relocation provided. There's health insurance made available. Having health insurance is a requirement of participation in the program. You do not have to use the program provided health insurance, but if you do use the program provided health insurance, it's heavily augmented, supplemented, that is. And the appointments are renewable up to 3 years. It's a fairly in-depth process. You do have to go through and identify a research opportunity, and I'm going to take this time to pull this over to my screen. This is our homepage, mpp.orau.org. So what you do is you go in and you can just click right here for current research opportunities, and this will show you at a very high level all of the research opportunities. And so I just looked, if we were to happen to type in hydrology and do a search, this will filter down and show you sort of what opportunities are available now, just specific to that. We'll just pick one here, and you can click in and see a research opportunity. This is all the description of the opportunity. It's fairly high level. It will also give you a point of contact, and we'll get to that in a minute. We do encourage that you reach out to the advisor first to establish communication, bounce your idea off of them. And I say that right now because, as I mentioned in the earlier screen, that is 20% of the reference, and it's actually a go, no-go decision point. But to get back to the process, you would go onto our site and find an opportunity, prepare your proposal. There's other information required. Your transcripts have to be gathered, and your letters of reference have to be arranged, and everything has to be received by 6 p.m. Eastern US time on the cycle deadline. After that, it goes through a review process. The first step is to go to the NASA prospective research advisor. Well, they will review the technical proposal, they'll score it, and they'll say, yes, we do want to consider this, or no, we're not considered in that. And that is a go, no go step right there. So you can cycle out of the process at that point in time. If the advisor says, yes, I'd like to have this considered, then we have an external merit review process that is executed for all of the applications. That goes through, panel review process, merit review, and that takes into account the rubric that I showed earlier. That will account, your technical proposal accounts for 40% of your research score, and then your academic preparation and your letters. Then ORAU returns those results to NASA, and NASA makes the selection. So there's different activities that happen within different NASA centers. But I say all that to say that this is a fairly long process. It's not, so start early. It will take 2 or 3 months from your application until you hear anything back on the results. And so if you're looking at graduating in the spring, now's a good time to start thinking about something. The next application cycle after November is going to be March. So that wouldn't be, you wouldn't hear anything until probably June or July. So you may not know anything before you actually finish your degree. So starting early. The proposal itself is a 15-page proposal, double-spaced. So, but that is the most important part of your application. We have some resources on our website. Dr. Mac Bernstein at NASA headquarters is the NASA Science Mission Director at Lead for Research. If you go onto our website and this link in our news, we had him give a webinar to the MPP fellows a couple of months ago, which is not specifically about MPP, but it's about writing proposals, because Max is in charge of the NASA research opportunities in Earth and Space Sciences. So he's got a good insight and lived in grant writing for a very long time. And so we made that video available for anyone who wants to go and listen to Max talk about what is required for a NASA research proposal. The MPP proposal process is not the ROSES process, but there's a lot of similarities, so you may find it generally useful. Application tips. This is something that I thought was going to be very important for this audience. Every time someone comes and asks me, hey, what should I do to become a postdoc with the MPP? And I say, find a potential advisor and contact them, because I've said it a couple of times already, because it's very important. The most important thing is that the potential research advisor is interested in working with you. They don't direct research, but they do mentor the research. They advise the research. So the fellows do write an independent research proposal, and it's expected that awarded fellows will conduct their research independently, but there is some oversight and advisement from a NASA advisor. And so it is definitely beneficial for you to reach out proactively, engage with them. I came through a postdoctoral program very similarly. A number of years ago, I was a National Research Council postdoc, and I reached out to the advisor. We actually sort of wrote the proposal together. He gave me some comments and some edits, and I submitted the final thing. And I would not have gotten that award without close collaboration with a potential research advisor. So from personal experience and from observed experience, that's probably the most important thing that you can do. And that also allows you to not write a 15-page proposal that immediately, what I don't want to see, and what I've seen too many times before, is people spend a large amount of time writing a proposal. They submit to an opportunity, an advisor doesn't know it's coming. It doesn't align with the research they're interested in, and so they don't get any support. And so that's a concern, and I don't want you to really waste your time. Thank you, Lawrence. Okay, a couple of things. The program is open to citizens of many countries. There are some limitations on that. In general, if you're eligible for a J1 exchange visitor visa, you will be eligible for the program. However, each research opportunity has to also follow the sponsorship requirements of each NASA center. Some NASA centers do not allow non-US citizens on center for security reasons. That's on a center-by-center basis, so review the opportunity. All that information should be in the research opportunity description. Just a few more tips for preparing your application. Do follow the guidelines, because from setting the same standard for all applicants, do limit yourself to the 15 pages, do comply with the transcript requirements, and do make sure that your letters get in, because even if they come in late or they're not acceptable, and all of the other applicants were able to meet that deadline, it's not really fair to the other applicants that were able to get that if we make exceptions for people who weren't able to get those in. So just to sort of frame that, those are actually really important. All of this information is available on the NPP website. If you go in and we'll go under applicants, there's an application tips tab, and you can find that. There's the link to it in the bottom there. I think that's it. Bring it in for a landing there, and I will turn it back over to Lawrence. Thank you very much.
Wow. Well, thank you, Dr. Miller. That was incredibly ahead of time, actually. So that was great. We're not going to pause for questions still, just because we're going to maintain that little bit of schedule. But thank you for your presentation. That was extremely informative. Yeah, I mean, I have questions myself. I'll be asking.
My apologies. I thought I saw your hand go up, and I thought you were giving me a 2-minute warning, so I accelerated at the end.
Sorry, I
no
should
problem.
Be. Yes, the hand will be a 5-minute
warning. 5-minute warning. Okay, that's fine.
Sorry about that. Okay. Well, with that, since we're going to keep going, I'm going to welcome Dr. Monika Kopacz from NOAA. She's going to be talking about the Climate and Global Change Postdoctoral Fellowship at NOAA. Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And let's see, can I share my screen? We need to exchange that.
Scott, I believe you need to stop sharing your screen first.
Actually, I should be able to override that. So.
Monika, I believe, or Dr. Kopacz, I believe you're muted. Still muted.
Monika, you are muted.
That's not great. Oh, okay, thank you very much. Hopefully everyone can see my slides now. All right, so yeah, thank you everyone for being here. I'm actually here on behalf of Ginny Seltz, current Convened and Global Change Federal Program Manager. And the reason you see UCAR and NOAA here is because while this is a NOAA postdoctoral program, the NOAA postdoctoral program for climate and global change, it's actually wholly administered by UCAR. So I'll get to that later, but basically it's all in UCAR's hands, as you'll see from the slides. So as I mentioned, there's there's a Ginny as a contact person for this program, but there's also Cindy Bruyere, who is at UCAR. She's currently a deputy director of the CPS program under UCAR. And she's handling the program at UCAR there. So the program has been around for 32 years and has had 255 fellows. And throughout its history, the fundamental idea was to help create and train the next generation of leading researchers that is needed for climate studies. So this is really broadly defined. And the program focuses on everything from observing, understanding, modeling, predicting climate variability and global change and its impacts on all kinds of aspects of the Earth system. So physical, chemical, biological, and there's definitely hydrology in there as well. We actually just released the next announcements. Unlike NASA, we just have one call per year. And applications are always due in early January. So this is next deadline is January 4th for the proposals, and this was actually just released, so it's kind of late. Usually comes out in September. So just in terms of some of the topics that have been covered by the program, there definitely has been hydrology, maybe not the main focus, right? It's a pretty broad program, but definitely there has been a hydrology as part of the program in its scope. So an example of a recent topic is investigating changes in springtime water availability to inform water management in the Himalayas. So that's the kind of project this program has supported, but we also support ecosystems, drought, precipitation, paleoclimate, hurricanes, methane, other carbon cycle and biological projects, stratosphere processes, so chemistry, climate dynamics, of course, and even glaciers, evolution of glaciers and climate. So it's a pretty broad program. You can see more on the website on the bottom about current and former fellows, just to give you an idea of the scope of the whole program. So the applicants that are eligible to have these fellowships, there's some requirements. One of them is that the applicant has to move to a new institution. This is a pretty big one, and the exception for compelling circumstances is pretty strict, and it's very rare that the applicants do not move to a new institution. Of course, with COVID, there's all kinds of issues there about the actual moving, but that's definitely the rule that hasn't changed in a long time. The other requirement is that the applicant has held a PhD no more than 3 years, pretty typical, right, since it's a postdoctoral fellowship. And the way the timing works out is that applicants can apply if they anticipate to finish their PhD by December 1st of the award year. So by next year, if you think you're going to defend your PhD by December 23, then you're definitely eligible to apply. And obviously applications have to be complete, otherwise they cannot be reviewed. Another pretty big requirement is that the hosting institution must be in the United States. So it doesn't have to be a NOAA lab or anything like that, but it does have to be a US-based institution. Meanwhile, the applicants can come from anywhere in the world. US citizenship is not a requirement, so really the best and brightest from the whole world come for this fellowship, but they do come to a US institution. Okay, so in terms of host, yeah, it's a US institution, but the additional requirement is that applicants may not apply with a department that already has a postdoc fellowship, a fellow in their first year. So basically, if you see who the fellows are in their first year this year, the departments are not, it's departments, not institutions, that are not eligible to host another fellow next year. So in this case, it's 2 departments in MIT, 2 departments at UW, Purdue, UC Irvine, Georgia Tech, and Utah. So might want to double check on that a limiting factor, I suppose, before applying. In terms of materials, you might start seeing a pattern between here and other fellowship programs. We need a cover letter, we need a CV. For professional references, these are not just names, but actual letters that are read very, very closely. You need a PhD dissertation abstract. So even though you're not done, but you should have an abstract already. And then we need a project description. So this is where you really describe the project. There's 5-page limits, so maybe pretty short. But this is really the main part of the proposal. We need a statement of relevance in future interactions with NOAA. This is somewhat new, last 1 or 2 years that we require this. Again, no one has to do a fellowship in a NOAA center or even with close collaboration, but there needs to be some relevance of why this would be supported by NOAA. Another thing we require is inclusion statement and host application materials. So we do need a letter from the host saying basically that they are ready to receive the applicant. They're ready to provide whatever the applicant needs in terms of resources, computer, lab space, anything like that. And of course, a great research environment to perform research in. So in terms of the review criteria, so these are all the criteria. I'm just going to list them like that. So the review criteria include the relevance and fit with the program. So is it really climate? Is it really global change related? Obviously, lots of great research, important research out there, but to be done. But is this really climate change and global changes? This is often a discussion with the within the steering committee. Obviously, quality of the proposal, quality of the academic record that shows great research experience and how many publications the applicant has, reference letters, leadership in service, and diversity inclusion. These are all the criteria that go into the score. But I think there was a question and guidance of what differentiates exceptional candidates. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of great research that needs to be done out there, but what really it makes the outstanding proposals come out in the review process is the quality of the proposal. And here what we mean by that is that it's not just a great idea, but it is really innovative and really takes the field in a new direction, really pushes the field forward. We are looking for future leaders. So while your future host might have just great proposal funded and it's great work, important, that is not what the idea here is. The idea is to really take a step in some new direction. This is the time to try things out, right? When you're a postdoc fellow. So this is what's really important with this application. And the second, almost equally important one, is to show that the applicant is ready to take that step. That the applicant demonstrated research independence, right? This is not just somebody who maybe followed whatever the PI had, the PhD advisor had funded before. There needs to be some demonstration of some level of independence and a great track record of research excellence, especially publications. There's no required minimum of number of publications, but that does get into the discussion of how much has the applicant published. Definitely that comes up in review. So in terms of dates and timeline for the review, as mentioned, early January is usually when applications are due. So again, this year, this time, we have early January application deadline. And then just like with NASA and others, it takes a few months. So this is when the review happens, the sorting committee gets together, things like that. And by March, April, the selections are made. So that's when candidates are notified, but then they don't have to start until summer through fall. So that's the timeline. Everyone doesn't have a same start date, just depending when they finish the PhD, move, and things like that. So this is a 2-year fellowship, 24 months. And in addition, there's a monthly networking and professional development seminars with NOAA scientists. This is to connect the fellows with NOAA, which hopefully goes both ways as a benefit. It's actually a silver lining of our COVID situation, so it's nice that everyone liked it so much, so we continue it. There's also opportunities to present NOAA science seminars. It goes to the whole of NOAA, and opportunity to attend Coming Global Change program biannual summer fellowship. It's a summer fellowship. It's Summer Institute, we call it. This is usually in somewhere in Colorado, I forget. But it's a great, a few day get together. It's a great networking event. So that's when the fellows get together with hosts and discuss some topics. So this is our current committee. Unlike usual proposal review, this is not secret. So this is, you can see who will be reviewing the next set of proposals. There's some rotation every few years, but this is the current setup of the steering committee. So this also gives you an idea of who is reviewing your proposals and how much of a expertise they have in your particular field. So that's good to keep that in mind, that this is a pretty broad fellowship. And in terms of benefits, they're great benefits, and especially as a former UK employee, I can tell you they're really, really great. So there's a salary about 71K. I think might have changed a little bit. Obviously, it went up. There's relocation assistance, so moving expenses. There's also about 8K per year for travel, publications, and other small research expenses. Great health plan, life insurance, FSA accounts, retirement benefits, great retirement benefits, and paid time off, and sick leave, holidays, anything that you would expect and might want to have, it's basically there, which is really great. So this is our newest announcement. January 4th is the deadline for applications, and about April we will notify the applicants. There's also, I think this is new this year, I don't remember seeing this before, we'll have a Q&A with some of the committee members. So if you do have questions, you want to talk to somebody sort of more face-to-face, this is an opportunity. October 27th, there'll be a live session. And again, this is the website for the program where you can get more information. You can also email Cindy or Ginny about any other questions you may have. So yeah, with that, please put your questions in the Q&A, and these are the 2 people that you need to know in case you have questions about this program, and do note the website for the program where you can get all kinds of information, including on past projects, current fellows, and things like that. So thank you. That's all I have.
That was excellent. Thank you, Dr. Kopacz. That was great. Yeah, I got my research career started with funding from NOAA and at a NOAA Cooperative Science Center. So that was nice to see it coming back from a different perspective. Thank you very much. And so thank you very much for your presentation. We'll be, again, if anyone has questions, please pop them in the Q&A. I see that Dr. Miller has already been answering some of the questions. We'll be continuing to do that and taking your questions over to the breakout rooms. That'll happen at the end of the hour. We are running quite ahead of time, so we have a lot of time here for questions afterwards. Dr. Campbell from the USGS will be speaking about the Mendenhall Research Fellowship Program next. Dr. Campbell, if you want to share your screen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Share. Okay, hopefully everybody can see this. So I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to talk about the U.S. Geological Survey Mendenhall Research Fellowship Program. And I'm having trouble advancing. This is what I asked about. Oh, there we go. Uh-oh. Sorry, I'm so used to Teams. I'm having a little trouble with this one. So, but I just wanted to start off by talking a little bit about the Mendenhall goals. And so this is a USGS-wide program. And one of the main reasons that it was instituted was to further the USGS mission. We are a science agency, and so we provide the scientific data and information to the policymakers, the decision makers, and the public. But we are not actually regulatory or decision making. So we are truly a science-based organization. And so the Mendenhall will actually come in and be an active part of research teams and work with partners and other researchers in the USGS. And so we're hoping in doing that we are providing value also to the USGS science by bringing in, that new, the new thoughts, new techniques, new energy into some of the existing, as well as new research directions. And so this program is providing value to the science that we do. And hopefully by being active researchers within the organization, participating in all the different activities that researchers perform, that we're also enhancing the scientific stature and the credentials of the fellows that are participating in the program so they can be successful in whatever avenue they want to pursue after the fellowship. Okay, and so just a little bit about the USGS, and I'm mentioning this largely because it actually does have some impact and influence on how applications are selected for hiring. And so we are organized into 5 large mission areas, and they're all very discipline specific. And the one thing is, and so basically each of these mission areas will then select particular opportunities to advertise in our annual round for the fellowship. So you'll be getting some from hazards, some from ecosystems, some for water. But what we're unique is we are very interdisciplinary. So we might have hydrologists that are working on studying lava flows and volcanoes, or they're looking for contaminants coming out of abandoned mines, or trying to figure out why there are specific aquatic organisms in, where they are in the aquatic environment. So we are very integrated. And so if you get on our website, and I'll have the link at the end, hopefully you can look at all the different categories, and you might find things that will be of interest across all these different mission areas. But just to highlight some of the water ones, since this is a hydro group, some of the things that we have available at the moment get into integrated modeling of surface water and groundwater to get at, water availability, looking at the quantity, the quality, the uses of water out there. Also, improving data networks. We have a lot of observing systems out on the landscape, and there's a lot of research that goes into, establishing what is the proper network, what is the density, how do you then scale up that information so that you can use it across different spatial scales. We also do some lab-based stuff. We have a very well-known radioisotope lab that's looking for folks to help develop compound-specific radioisotopes that can be used for a variety of applications. We're also developing tracer technologies that can, follow transport through aquifers of various constituents, as well as, discerning chemical pathways, looking at how the chemicals degrade especially when it comes to contaminants of emerging concerns and such. So there are a lot of different opportunities. I think we have like 42 or 43 advertised at the moment. They won't all be selected and funded. It is competitive even across the opportunities, but there are a lot out there. So again, we encourage you to please look at the website. And so when you apply for one of these and are selected, you'll become a fellow. And you are actually hired as a research scientist within the USGS. So you will be a government employee coming in as a GS-12. Step one is the base of what folks come in as for a 2-year time limited appointment. So you will get the salary of a GS-12 plus all the benefits associated with that. And it's an initial 2-year appointment, but you can be extended for any increment of time beyond that up to a total of 4 years. So the maximum that a Mendenhall could potentially serve in their appointment is 4 years. We do have fellows spread across the country, so they're not unique to a particular area. And we're actually even, after COVID, we've even started having some remote possibilities out there as well. So there's an opportunity in some instances to work remotely. The one thing is that these do not, even though they're government positions, they don't come with any competitive or permanent status. So to become a permanent employee, you would still have to compete for an opening in a different position. But fellows have been very competitive, and we're seeing more of them in the research ranks in the USGS. So again, these are postdoctoral fellowships, so there is a PhD requirement. If you already have your PhD, we, there's a kind of a 5-year window we're looking at since the opening date of the actual opportunity. And if you are working on your PhD, that's fine. You can still apply, but you have to actually fulfill all the requirements for the PhD by the time you set a start date and can actually start employment. And these are, again, you're coming on as a federal employee, so there are citizenship issues here. They are prioritized for U.S. citizens. So if there is a mix of citizens and non-citizens that are in the applicant pool, and the U.S. citizens are qualified, they will get priority in the review. It doesn't mean that it's not possible at all for a non-citizen to get hired, but it's a much more limited circumstances. One of them would be that there are no qualified citizens in the pool, and if that holds, and you're meeting both Appropriations Act and immigration laws, which means that you're almost trying to become a citizen, then you might be considered. So, for example, if you're a permanent lawful resident and you're actively seeking citizenship, we just had a case of that, then that person might actually be eligible for one of these positions. But we like to tell everybody is we're not discriminating against in terms of applications. So anybody that's interested can apply, but just to let you know that there is a priority toward U.S. citizenship for these fellows. All right, and so we do most of our hiring on an annual cycle. There are occasionally some individual opportunities that will pop up throughout the year, but again, the bulk is on this annual timeline. The positions opened on August 1st, and they're closing on November 1st, and we actually go through 11:59 p.m. on the 1st of November, so you'd have all day on the 1st. And then if applications are accepted between September 1st and November 1st. So there's a nice window there for applications. Once these close, then there are several layers of review. We will start off with just a basic HR review, who will look at the PhD requirements and the citizenship issue, and also that you're meeting the basic qualifications for the position. Then we will get those applicants that meet the criteria, and they will move on to the research team. Each of the opportunities actually has a research team associated with it, and the folks on that team will review the opportunities that were of applicants for that particular opportunity, and they will do their review. We'll get the feedback, and then we'll make that available to the mission areas that I described earlier, and ultimately it's those mission areas that will be selecting what applicants and what research opportunities that they want to fund. And so that review process, again, it's kind of a large window. It goes from November into probably March. And as a result, there's kind of this window where we extend offers to folks. It can be as early January to mid-January, and probably will go into April will be the bulk of the offers, but we might even have a few that might go as far as June. But come the end of June, that's when we stop making the offers. And then we're very flexible when people can come on board. If people can get through the background checks and the onboarding process early, they might even be able to, and they have their PhD, they might be able to start as early as like June. I think we had someone start in June in this past round. But we also let you go for about a year. So you can apply, you can have an offer, and then in this case, it would be March of 2024 that we would try to have everybody on board. So it is pretty flexible. All right, for the content of the application, there are a few pieces that are part of the application package. A resume or a CV. We're looking for education transcripts, and the research proposal, which sort of like we've heard before, is kind of a bulk of this application, and I'll discuss it in a minute. We are also looking for a budget, so you can actually, it's a 2-year appointment, kind of say what are the expenses that you anticipate having over those 2 years, whether it be field work and travel, or computer and data and other sorts of estimated budget concerns and considerations. So it's kind of up to you to estimate what you think you'll need. And then, and to include, you can include references that you were cited in your proposal, and also a list of all the publications that you've had so far. And it can include abstracts and symposia, reports, or other things. And then also to include any foreign education documentation, as well as any veterans preference documentation. So we do have that consideration as well. And I won't go through all the specifics of what's in a resume or a CV, but just a few things that we like to include in those when they're submitted would be the title of the position that you are applying for. And we also ask people how they found out about the job, because we are trying to get the word out. So we like to know what avenues people are finding the opportunities from. The country of citizenship, again, for the citizenship issue, veterans preference, whether you're going to claim that or not. And then as part of the review, the research team will be contacting up to 3 references. So we ask you to also supply information for 3 references, as well as contact information for yourself. Okay, and so the proposal is, the bulk of the application, really. And we have an 8-page limit on the proposal. And really what we want you to do is to get into the research objectives. What are you trying to do? Link it back to some of the strategies for the USGS, and really get into the specifics of how you are planning to do the work. Where is it going to be conducted? Any required facilities or research equipment that would be needed, make sure that's incorporated into the proposal. And also just, include the research advisors team names on there as well. And sort of like you've heard in some of the previous presentations, we really highly recommend communicating with the advising team, even before you submit a proposal or think, if you're just thinking about it, reach out. And there really is a bit of communication back and forth with potential applicants and with folks as they're writing their proposal. So do reach out. And just for, as you're thinking about this, the scientific needs of the USGS really need to be in there, and how you're meeting those, because again, it's the mission areas and the programs that ultimately decide who is going to get selected and funded. And also just make sure that you are really illustrating and showing that you are equipped with the knowledge, the skills and abilities to do the work that you're proposing to accomplish over the 2 years. All right, and so there is a fairly rigorous review by the research team, and there are 4 things that they're really going to be looking at. The first is the technical quality of the proposal and the probability of actually getting the work done within that initial 2-year appointment. And this one is double weighted. So again, that proposal is quite important in the review. The relevance and timeliness of the work, the research performance, and considering your academic record. As well as looking at the budget and the facilities. Is the budget reasonable for what you're trying to do? Are the facilities available as well? So what I did for this talk is I actually did reach out to a few research folks who have actually evaluated Mendenhalls or hired Mendenhalls in the past, particularly focused kind of more on the hydrology end, and just asked them for some tips, what makes a successful proposal. And these were the things they suggested, is to really read the research opportunity and address the specifics of the particular job. Have a real clear and compelling research question and a feasible path for answering that question. And it probably will involve, hopefully, developing testable hypotheses or questions that show your engagement and your knowledge of the subject matter. And really make sure that proposals are clearly structured and written. They suggested even linking phrases, linking phrases of the proposed work to the hypotheses and the questions that are being asked so that you can really understand how everything fits together. And then also make sure that in your whole package that your background and your skills really stand out and show that you can perform this high quality, high impact work without having to have a very steep learning curve. You want to kind of hit the ground running. And even if you don't, if you're having to pivot a little bit from what you've done in the past, that you can still hit the ground and that the background you have will allow that to happen easily. And also that you're proposing a feasible work load for the 2-year time frame. And research positions in the USGS are expected to publish. So also kind of plan how you might be able to get 1 or 2 publications out in that 2-year time frame. And then also, again, that detailed and reasonable budget. Sometimes it's helpful to split them out by the 1st and the 2nd year and really make sure that, if you have field work, all the necessary expenses would be incorporated into the budget. Computer work, same thing, or lab work. If you're going to have travel to meetings, if you want to have publications, include all that kind of information into a budget as well. And one thing that they really stressed with everybody is that communicating with the research advisors is really, really important. And so again, do it if you're just considering applying, and they will provide context for the opportunity, what they're looking for. They can answer questions that you have. And they actually do have a fair amount of back and forth with applicants as they're writing the proposal, and they can provide input as well. So overall, it doesn't mean that you can't write a strong proposal if you don't communicate, but in general, research advisors really did believe that, having that open communication really does lead to a stronger proposal in the end. So really communicate with advisors. And then, and finally, they also wanted to stress that that these are competitive fellowships, as are all the other programs that we've seen today. And so you can do all these things that they recommend, all these tips, and have a very, very strong proposal, and still you might not get selected. So, it's not your fault. And we just want to say, don't get, kind of keep an up, don't get depressed or feel bad about it. It's just part of the process. But they just wanted to emphasize that as well. Okay. So that is with that, that's all I have.
That is excellent. And you also caught some of the questions from the chat, including the one about the permanent position. So thank you very much. The Mendenhall Fellowship is an excellent opportunity. I have some friends doing that. Thanks to Dr. Miller, who's been fielding questions in the chat left and right. And folks,
and please understand, I'm only answering from a NASA perspective. NOAA and USGS, please feel free to follow up and if you answered. I did not mean to. It's just the nature of Zoom. It takes one answer and then goes to answered, but I'm sure there's plenty more to be contributed.
Yep. So we're actually, and I'm seconding Dr. Miller's questions, Dr. Kopacz and Dr. Campbell, if you see Q&A in there, but we're going to transition in just a couple minutes to the breakout rooms. We are actually running ahead of time. Not somehow we planned that on purpose. And I wanted to then give the opportunity to ask a general question for all of the program directors, so basically that was something that'll come up for everyone. And one such question is in the chat right now. So Dr. Miller, because your screen is shared, you can go first. And Dr. Campbell and Dr. Kopacz, if you can give a brief answer, then I will very quickly say how the breakout rooms are going to work, and then we'll transition after you answer the question. The question is in the chat now. Is there any postdoc fellowship in these 3 agencies which allows students to be co-advised with agencies and their PhD advisors? So again, Dr. Miller, if you want to go first.
Sure. The reason I didn't answer this is because I'm mentally trying to reconcile students with postdocs. And there's a follow-on question in the chat to me right now, which may lead to that question. there is no mechanism through the NPP to allow students to be co-advised with their PhD advisors, because by the time they're in the NPP, they're no longer students. Right now, that doesn't mean you can't collaborate with your PhD advisor, but you do have to have a primary advisor from NASA for all of these. And there's a follow-on question, and I don't know if it's a direct question to me or if it's in the full chat about opportunities for postdocs to get funded while affiliated at current institutions. I'm preparing a response to that right now. But the reason I didn't answer that question is because if you're looking at, can you still collaborate with your PhD advisor while you come do a NASA postdoc? Absolutely, you can, but you still have to find a NASA advisor to be your primary advisor, and you have to apply to the program. Hopefully that helps.
We're going to address it for NOAA. For the NOAA postdoctoral fellowship, the key thing is independence. So definitely, Scott was just saying, yeah, you'd have to move on to your postdoc advisor, your host, and there needs to be a strong degree of independence shown and a change in institution. But I mean, if you're still in the same field and collaborating, obviously that's perfectly fine. I just would not emphasize it in the application that this is a continuation of your PhD on some level.
Yeah, and I think the same thing. And our research teams for these opportunities, they're not always USGS, and so sometimes they will be with academic collaborators or other agencies. So there are often our research teams, and so as part of that, you could still work with your former advisor if it's again related to what you're doing now, but you would hopefully be focused more on the team and doing that work. And not so much focused on what you did in the past.
Okay, I think everyone gave a very similar answer, I would say, just with the context of their particular agency or funding agency, rather. Okay, so since we're now back on time, we'll be transitioning to the next part of the webinar for today. So I'm just gonna pop out my screen really fast and explain what's gonna happen. So we're gonna have breakout rooms. Julie Masterman, who has been basically the logistic wizard and making sure that everything's working right now, except for the screen sharing, that's on all of us, sadly. She will be posting in the chat a Zoom link. We're gonna go to that Zoom, and then we're gonna go, it's a different Zoom link. And that one is not going to be in this panelist format. It's going to be a different format. And in there, you'll have a breakout room to choose. And each agency will have one breakout room. So Dr. Miller from NASA will have a breakout room. Dr. Kopacz from NOAA will have a breakout room. Dr. Campbell from USGS will have a breakout room. You can enter the breakout room. You will be able to switch breakout rooms, but maybe you're interested in applying for multiple postdoc fellowships, right? This is a typical thing. We ask, please do not switch only switch in the 15-minute mark, and just be respectful of the time. If you go in and you ask the same question that was already asked, because you're switching around at 8 minutes and it can be distracting. So if you want to switch at the 15-minute mark, feel free to do so. And we'll try and keep an eye out also on the chat to make sure the questions are pasted in the chat. If you decide to ask a question live, or the opportunity arises, only briefly introduce yourself and your interests. So for example, I might say, my name is Lawrence, I'm about to defend my PhD and I'm interested in applying for a postdoc fellowship at agency X. And then ask the direct question. Just be respectful of the time. There are 100 people here, so this can be a very dense thing if people don't get to the immediate question. Again, and this is a follow-up of what Julia said earlier with Kuwahazi's guidelines. Be respectful in all your communication with the other attendees and the panelists, and uphold the Kuwahazi Code of Conduct, the AGU H3S Code of Conduct, and basically be appropriate. And we are monitoring everything. Things are being recorded. Keep that in mind. And lastly, just a question guideline to reiterate from the beginning. avoid specific questions about your research, which may reveal details about your proposed project. So for example, I work in river deltas. If my question was going to say something like, I am going to study the Eel River Delta in Northern California and conduct sampling, will the USGS fund that? And then give away what I'm doing. That might not be a question that you want to ask in front of everybody, but it might be a question that's more appropriate for a private chat, unless you can anonymize it in some sense. And this is the final thing. Remember that all questions and answers will be written down and shared. So there will be moderators in each room. There'll be a note taker. The questions that you ask and the answers given by the respective program directors will be shared back later on our website. So you can get that information.